Good morning, my friends. How delightful of you to come. Hello to those of you out there on the internet. How kind of you to show up too. We have the great good fortune of having a children's program. We have the wonderful privilege of having Mariah being the teacher, and the not so good fortune that in January she's moving on to a full-time teaching position, and we are looking for a new teacher. So you may be able to help us in that quest. Some years ago, I was privileged to do it was billed as a kayaking trip in to the east of Baja, in the Sea of Cortez, I guess it's called. It actually was a luxurious trip on a converted fishing boat, and we used kayaks for adventures. And they set up our tents for us. I mean, talk about silly. And they cooked for us. But what I'm just reminded of right now, the last night there was an older fellow, probably younger than me now, but he'd had a really tough life. It was clear, and he was suffering with some pain in his shoulder. And in the afternoon, I gave him a 2-hour massage on the deck of the boat, and no one had ever touched him like that. It was quite, and his shoulder really loosened up. And that night he was playing, he played the guitar. He had an old beaten up guitar, and he was playing the guitar in the various dialects of Mexico. There were several fellows from different parts of Mexico. He said, "Oh, I know this song from," and it was really quite a remarkable time. And at a certain point, he started tearing up, and tears were flowing down his cheek. And he said, through the translator, I didn't speak Spanish, but I got to, "Oh, there's no sound to that? Ha. Is it on?" Does anyone have one of the hearing impaired devices that's working? There are 2 not up there. Test 1, 2. Can you get that one to work? I did not do a sound check on them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, no, yes, no. I will make one attempt here. That's that. This is this. ST out. Huh. Well. Well, that's what's easily accessible. Did it work? Nope. Sorry. test of memory. So he got very teary, and we were making really direct eye contact, and he said, the problem with loving people is that we always have to part. And it's true, isn't it? Today I'm going to be speaking about dukkha, the suffering or unsatisfactoriness, or as Ruth Denison put it colorfully, Dalink, there's always a leak in the canoe. It's one of the threads of the fabric of our lives. So, there's the question, do we dare to get born? Do we dare to actually come into our bodies and feel them? Do we dare to come into contact with each other and actually love each other? And it's a journey that requires extraordinary courage to actually take birth, to move out of our minds and out of fantasy into actually being fully incarnated. And as we discover when we undertake a meditative practice, particularly over time, all those things in us and in the world that we thought we could get away from, we discover we can't. And so we gradually wind up embracing the extraordinary pleasures and joys of life, but also the great disappointments and pains and anguish. So it takes a very brave person to do this. So please take a moment. Think about something that you appreciate about yourself. It doesn't have to be a Nobel Prize or some action. Something that you've done in the last year, even that make it broad, that you're glad of. And turn and speak to your neighbor and say hello. And dare to tell them something that you are glad about in yourself, please. Unless this is simply the wrong thing, in which case just sit and be quiet. So we'll have just a couple of minutes to greet one another. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2, 3. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. What the heck? Test 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. Input. I want the input louder. Input, input, input. More input. Input 1, 2, 3. Oh. Input 1, 2, 3, 4. So phones out. This is phones out. Test 1, 2, 3, 4. ST out 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. might give the hearing devices another chance. The signal to them is much more powerful now. So here we sit. Dare we occupy this body? Dare we come home? Check out, what's it like to come directly into contact with your body where it touches the floor? Or the life in your hands? The life in your face, the life that is your face. Sounds, notice hearing. At the moment of your birth, you took a gasping first breath. Your lungs inflated, since your mother couldn't breathe for you anymore. And since then, with hardly any interruption, there's been this expanding and contracting of the chest and abdomen. This will continue for a short time or a long time until your last breath, when the body breathes out. Expiration. The expiration on the body runs out. That which came into being with your birth will vanish. And this breathing, these sensations of breathing, provide a marvelous place to abide or hang out. And any moment that awareness is in contact with the body breathing, it's not lost in fantasies of past and future. And you'll notice that each breath has a beginning. It comes out of nowhere. A beginning, a rising to fullness, and then a vanishing. There's a very popular misunderstanding that the purpose of meditation is to stop the mind. That's kind of a fool's errand, because then with the disappointment of not being able to do that, one quits. Wiser to become curious about what the mind does when it doesn't stay with the breath, in its wanderings, in its wild gyrations. Mindfulness arises, notices what the mind is up to, and then it's possible to return to the relative stability of breathing in and breathing out. And right from the outset, we can stop the war of trying to control this life. Starts right here. So with great kindness, profound compassion, we'll sit for a while, for 25 minutes or so. Nose to nose with what the mind does, with the sensations in the body. Each of us following closely in the footsteps of the Buddha, who was an ordinary person just like us. So coming home to the actual sensations of life as breathing continues. may discover that the mind is quiet and at ease and spacious and loving, full of faith. Or it could be full of desire or disliking or aversion or restlessness or sleepy dullness or doubt or colored by some emotion or another. If we are going to embrace life and dare to be fully alive, which is the path to awakening, there's a profound acceptance and equanimity, a renunciation of the desire for things to be a certain way. As I mentioned, an incredible courage to sit and bear the unbearable. So coming home to your body in its mysterious aliveness, to the breath that comes and goes, to the sounds, including this voice intermittently that comes into being and then disappears. And to all the activities of mind. And rooted or grounded in the phenomenon of the beginning, middle, and ending of the breath. In a few moments, the gong will ring out twice. Once to remind us, be here, be awake, now. And the second gong signals the end of this posture of practice. It's not the end of meditation, because meditation is a way of life, or it's the field in which life exists. In my conversations this last week with people about their practice, it came up 2 or 3 times that someone will peek and look around the room and everyone else is clearly in deep concentrated samadhi, in bliss. So let's put the truth to that. Please raise your hand if you were in deep bliss and delight during this sitting, for the most part. It's okay to do that. It happens. It's. How about if you experienced restlessness and agitation? How about sloth and torpor, dullness? How about desire, wanting a better meditation? How about disliking? How about fear? Loneliness? Take a moment. Notice the hands. This is really happening in here. It's noisy in this place. So, does that mean that your practice wasn't going or wasn't good? One of my early teachers in India, a lovely woman by the name of Krishna, said again and again, when you are happy, meditate. When you are unhappy, meditate. When you are angry, meditate. Meditate. Her story, how she came to practice, was that she had a Western medicine and Ayurvedic medicine failed. She had a burning sensation that would come over her body, and it was though her whole body was on fire, like itching and burning. And she went to see Deepa Ma, who was a teacher in Calcutta. And Deepa Ma told her to sit for 1 minute at a time, several times a day. And it was unbearable. She was so restless. And the time built up over for a while. And then she got so she could sit for some extended periods of time in the midst of this agony. And then one time she went and sat down, and the whole thing went gone. Interesting, huh? And then she went off to Burma. This got her attention. Oops, I forgot to turn off the great distractor. These things. Whew. Come on now. Airplane mode. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Dalton, sir, would you be so willing as to guide us in some movement?
Okay. Is this working? Yes. We'll get in touch with our feet and kind of move our center of gravity back and forth and feel how the feet respond. Weight over here, that leg is working harder. Weight over here, the other leg is working harder. Move it around in a circle, and all sorts of complicated things happen in the ankles and toes and heels. And we sink into our knees a little bit and just feel that connection with the earth through the floor and the timbers below us. And take a full breath in and release. And another breath. Sink a little bit deeper. And then just let the arms float up. So the legs are going to be working here, lifting us an inch or two higher and then sinking an inch or two lower. But the hands aren't working. They're just floating. Full of life. Now that the shoulders are softer, we can lift and open across the chest. Once more. Then we lift overhead and paint a rainbow. Release the arms down, cross the wrists, we'll breathe in, keep breathing in, breathe out, and then release down. And opening to the side with the palms up. You can pull one arm in and push with the other. And again, dropping the arms, but then moving back, turning the shoulders as much as we can without causing any harm. And we'll lift across. That starts the floor talking to us. Now we'll turn and gaze at the moon. Okay, now we'll push across, just feeling the hand float out here to one side and then float out to the other. Trying to keep the shoulders soft, the elbows soft, wrists soft. Then drawing the hand across, focusing on the palm. Let the other palm face the earth. Draw across like a cloud drifting across the sky. It's almost like the more softness we feel in the shoulders and hands, the more vitality we feel. Clouds filled with vitality. Okay, then we'll shift our attention to our stance where we're able to shift forward, splash in the sea, rock back, lift the toe. Lots of sensations in the body as we move the center of gravity back and forth. And continue to ride the waves. And open the arms, bring them forward. Feeling the weight move into the front leg and then lifting the toe so the back leg gets activated. And turning, stepping, splashing. Riding the waves. opening the arms. And back to the center. Find our feet under our shoulders again. Make a fist and sink. Let the dragon rise from the sea. There's power in the legs, power in the arms. A little different mood than when the clouds are floating across the sky. Then up on the toes, we can soar with the eagles and the cranes and beings of the air. And turn the wheel. Change direction. And come back to the center. Lift one arm and one leg. Okay, coming back to the center, we'll just breathe in and release. So whatever tension is left in the torso and the arms, we can just drain out. And coming to stillness. Again, the less stress, the less effort, the more vitality. What can we relax and let go of to see what's underneath that tension? Or you may feel like everything got loosened up pretty good and you just want to stand and enjoy. The body's relaxed, but the attention is focused on sensations in the body from the bottoms of the feet up through the legs, deep inside the torso, on the surface of the skin. You might feel the rib cage expanding and contracting as we breathe. The feeling of clothing on our arms and shoulders, or deep relaxation inside. Soft lips, soft jaw, soft little muscles around the ears, around the eyes, across the skull, releasing whatever is not required for standing. Letting the legs do the work and the torso just floats. Take a full breath in. A nice long, slow exhale. And then we'll bring our hands to our hearts and feel gratitude that we're still upright, breathing, and joined with our friends. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everybody. I feel like the commercial announcement. I'm the commercial announcement. So good to see you all here. I think it's one of the nicest things in my life most Sundays to come in here and look around and see you all here. It's really good stuff. Things that are going on. Seattle retreat in 2 weeks. And that's just a weekend retreat. But you can, that and all of the things I'm going to tell you about, you can find on our website. We have a couple important things coming up. We have our Stewardship Circle retreat, which is a single day. And if you're a member of our Stewardship Circle, that is a free one-day retreat. And I'll be telling you more about that as it gets a little closer. But it's December 5th. So if you're a member of our Stewardship Circle, or if you're going to become one, or if you just want to come, the topic is compassion and community. And for those of you who have been here a little while, you know that this group of people has become quite an extraordinary resource for a lot of people in terms of community and how we share the Dharma. So that should be a wonderful day. A gentleman named Frank Lader is coming from Germany, and he has created, he's a peer of Robert's and a student of Ruth Dennison's, and he is going to be doing an evening and a full day on his Touch Life system. And so Robert's going to be getting some information out to let you know what that's all about next week? Probably next week. Oh, you're doing it together. Wonderful. Even better. Wednesday morning, I've been doing early morning meditation. I'm going to be out of town on a short personal retreat myself. So if you come on Wednesday mornings, don't. This Wednesday. I would feel really bad if you were outside the door. If you want to be part of our ongoing conversations, you can join the PIMC Forum, which is a listserv. And the sign-up sheet for that is on a blue sheet at the back of the room. And you can also sign up for just an email list. And the difference is, in the forum, we talk to each other, and it gets kind of chatty, and it's a resource that can be a little noisy at times. I like that. I like seeing what everybody's doing. But some people don't. If you don't, sign up for the email list only, and that way you just get announcements about important things that are going to happen. There's a sign-up also for the Dharma consults, which are available if you just want to talk to someone about your practice or what's going on. Jim Dalton will be doing the Dharma consults today, and that sign-up is at the back of the room. Robert also sees people for Dharma consultations for a half an hour free, and if you're interested in doing that, you can call me after my personal retreat, and I'll get you in scheduled to see him. And you can find my contact information on the website. If you ever need to check on anything, just give me a buzz. We have a number of ways to support the community. We have our regular Donna box that's in the back of the room. It's that beautiful wooden box that we have to accept. Somebody recently said to me that they felt like it was their energy. It was their, when they donated, they felt very tangibly like it was the time. They had a very good connection to, I do this work and I'm given money, and so actually what I'm giving is a piece of my life. And I thought how true that is, and what a good way to put it is. Because when you help this community, you're giving the time that you spent to earn that money. We understand that. You can donate one time. You can donate one time online, or you could become part of our stewardship circle if you're ready to make an ongoing commitment. And we love that. It helps us to know how much money we have to take care of this building and to support each other and to develop new programs. So we do appreciate that very, very much. And if there's any way you can help, I guarantee you it will help your heart as well. So thank you very much. Ah, yes. Oh, I have it right here on the list. Do you want to mention it? Come on up. Here, just grab this real quick.
Hi everyone, I'm Michael, and this beautiful chest right here, sometime after service today, it'll be completely empty. And I will take all of these clothes to transition projects downtown, and it will be for people that have a hard life or are at a very low point in their life and need some assistance in the form of toiletries, underwear, socks, warm coats, blankets. These are people that are moving from the street into a apartment for the first time in a while, or they're also for people, they have a service there for people that are living on the street itself. So that will also make you feel really warm in the heart if you can make a donation next week or the week after.
I just also want to point out that Michael does this on his own time and selflessly. He's one of our many wonderful volunteers who we rarely hear from. It's just things just happen magically. I was realizing the other day, there's a whole lot of things I just don't think about because somebody magically does them. The carpets get done, the kitchen gets cleaned, the bathrooms get cleaned, and it's all because of committed community members who are absolutely amazingly diligent and loving and giving their time. If you are interested in becoming one of those volunteers, you would talk with Ethan Benetton, or if he's not available, you can talk with me, and we'll get you put together. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll talk with you soon.
I wish that each of us, including you, could sit here. It's quite an extraordinary experience. It would be an understatement to say that life is unpredictable. Have you noticed? I decided today to do something I do occasionally. I do it more when I'm doing a series of classes, but to use the projector and the screen and the setup. I've spent about 5 years creating it's kind of like a huge mind map of the Eightfold Path. And when I sat down here this morning, it was perfectly cued. And then it froze. Imagine a MacBook Pro freezing. How could it be? So I have rebooted twice, and it's starting in safe mode now. So we'll see. Maybe there will be pictures, and maybe there won't. Dukkha. At usually the right moment. Is this sound loud enough? Yeah. At usually the right. Oh, and for those who were interested in the hearing impaired devices, I think they're working again. I'm not sure. Are they? Yes? No? They're not. Oh well. Darn. Ruth Dennison, when upon seeing someone, myself, particularly tied up in the mind, on occasion would say, "Happy Dukkha, darling." There was a flash. Let's see. Safe boot. We'll see. Ooh, lots of weird flashes. Pooh, pooh. So I wanted to start with a poem anyway. See if it... This is a poem. Do I have the author? I don't think so. Oh yeah, Jack Gilbert. It's a poem about suffering, abject suffering. It's called A Brief for the Defense. Sorrow is everywhere. Slaughter is everywhere. If babies are not starving someplace, they're starving somewhere else, with flies in their nostrils. But we enjoy our lives because that's what God wants. Otherwise, the mornings before summer dawn would not be made so fine. The Bengal tiger would not be fashioned so miraculously well. The poor women at the fountain are laughing together between the suffering they have known and the awfulness in their future, smiling and laughing while somebody in the village is very sick. There is laughter every day in the terrible streets of Calcutta, and the women laugh in the cages of Bombay. If we deny our happiness, resist our satisfaction, we lessen the importance of their deprivation. We must risk delight. We can do without pleasure, but not delight, not enjoyment. We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. Isn't that a line? We must have, where'd it go? We must have the stubbornness to accept our gladness in the ruthless furnace of this world. To make injustice the only measure of our attention is to praise the devil. If the locomotive of the Lord runs us down, we should give thanks that the end had magnitude. We must admit there will be music despite everything. We stand at the prow again of a small ship anchored late at night in a tiny port, looking over to the sleeping island. The waterfront is 3 shuttered cafes and 1 naked light burning. To hear the faint sound of oars in the silence as a rowboat comes slowly out and then goes back is truly worthy of all the years of sorrow that are to come. So let me fiddle for a moment and see if it will provide the pictures or not. I see. word pictures instead. If you'll turn around and look at the back of the room, there is what's it called? An applique, a cloth item on the right-hand wall, the right hand of the back, which is the Buddha and the first 5 disciples. That's a pictorial representation of the first thing the Buddha taught. And it was the Four Noble Truths. He'd been practicing with these 5, I'm going to try this. He'd been practicing with these 5 friends when he'd been born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he tried to find happiness through satisfying desire, which is where we're at, right? That is the false promise of capitalist consumerist materialism. Get enough stuff, get rid of enough pain, rise to the top of the heap, and you'll be happy. And it's not true. So he left that. He then went off to practice. He left his wife and child, and which was a pretty desperate move, don't you think? He was a person with hair on fire. That this is he could see. There's a lovely little a novel about the Lady of the Lotus. It's the story of his wife, and the story from his wife's perspective, fiction. And she describes him walking on the ruins of an old castle and getting more and more upset and depressed, sort of, that this is what everything comes to. Everything falls apart. Everything dies in the end. And let me bear with me another second here. Just see if we can pull it out of the ashes. Okay. Well, there. So he was troubled, and then he went off. He left his kingdom. He went off and practiced concentration practices with the yogis in the forests and mastered what they were teaching. And they said, teach with us, because you know everything there is to know now. But he kept saying, there's this problem of birth, sickness, old age, decay, and death. We all still die. And so he left them, and he then went off to try to practice austerities. And in that, the notion with that is, if I never satisfy my body, if I never give into it, maybe I won't be attached to it anymore. And he took that to pretty extreme lengths, where he became a 1 grain of rice a day man, which is pretty low fat, low calorie, low everything. It's like, and he became very gaunt beyond survivability, really. And he almost died. He was climbing out of the river one day, and he almost didn't make it. And he realized this isn't working. And he was found crumpled in a heap by a young woman who had, and the story is lovely. I've got a couple of renditions of it on YouTube and on the PIMC site in audio. It's quite a wonderful mythology of our own inner journey. She found him, this woman named Sujata found him crumpled in a heap, and she had in her hands, this is wonderfully symbolic, a bowl of Indian milk rice that had been made from the milk of 100 cows that had been fed to 5 cows, I forget the details now, fed to 3 and then to 1. So here's like the ultimate in the feminine, in human kindness, and he needed that to bring him back from that perilous edge he'd gone to. He then, when his friends abandoned him, his 5 friends, he said, that Gautama guy, he's gone back to the world, he's eating again. And they left him. And then there's the wonderful story of his awakening, and then he went to find them. And it's a long ways. He went from Bodh Gaya up to the deer park north of Gaya, or north of Benares, which is about a 5 or 7 or 8 day walk at least. Anyway, he then found them and they turned away. It's like, there's this Gautama guy, he's fallen back into the world. But he was rather clear-headed and full of love, and by the time he got to them, they set a place for him and said, "So what have you found?" And he said, "There is suffering. There's a cause of suffering, there's an end to suffering, and there's a way, there's a path to that." And that's the foundation of the whole teachings. The way to that is the Eightfold Path. And I would say that, well, if one really illuminates and discovers for oneself the truth of these 4 ennobling or noble truths and follows the recommendations of the path, our lives are radically transformed. We suffer less, we get to be more happy, we become more loving, we certainly become more generous, and we may in fact experience the great freedom which is at the core of all spiritual traditions. So, I want to try this. Let's see. Some people say when I do something like this, they say, "Oh, I love the audiovisual component." Others say, "Why do you bother?" But it's because sometimes it's useful. Oh. You didn't do the mantra. You will start or you will be thrown in the trash. That's a sacred mantra from Nepal. This is your last chance. Dun, dun, dun. Don't, come on. Yep. Ooh, looking very hopeful. Oh, yes. Thank you very much. I'm not going to throw you in the trash. Well, this is a massive model. We can go out onto any of these 8 elements for hours and hours. It's a multi-month course. But for whom, who among you could name the steps of the Eightfold Path? So almost nobody. That's all right. You'll pay for this. We're here till tonight at 11. Worldview. Our worldview matters humongously because we see the world through those filters. We're going to come back to that. When our worldview is such that what do I want to be when I grow up? If it's I want to be a Buddha and I want to be very loving and wise, it's very different than if I want to join the 1%. Or I want to have had tremendous vacations, and if that's my goal. So our intentions are important, and the intentions the Buddha suggested are the intention to become wise, to become loving, to become patient. And if those are our intentions, we then speak differently, we act differently, and we're quite conscious of our livelihood. Is our livelihood contributing to life and supporting our own practice? And then, and this is where Buddhism really takes off, the effort, wise effort. There's so many efforts we could do in our life. And the Buddha viewed the human mind as the vehicle to freedom and said, well, train the mind to rein in unwholesome states that lead to unskillful actions and bring wholesome states into being. And chief among those wholesome states, mindfulness and concentration. And mindfulness is this miraculous, inexplicable phenomenon of being aware. Right? Please become aware that you're seeing. What is that? How do you make that happen? Nobody has any idea. Modern science is trying to tell us that it starts in the brain. The brain is a useful tuning device, it would seem, but, bold statement, it's the universe that's conscious. And all these phenomena, including the galaxies and us, happen in this mysterious phenomenon. And we're capable, it's this mystery of the complexity of the human brain, that we actually become conscious, the universe conscious of itself. So, we're working today, I want to bring this into wise view or wise understanding. And in wise understanding, this worldview, there's three major elements usually. One is the Four Noble Truths. The other is the understanding of karma, cause and effect. And the third is the three characteristics of existence, which are impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the fact that there isn't an enduring self. That if we dig down and dig and dig and dig, what we find is the universe, not a person, not a soul. We find everything. But today, we're focusing on the four ennobling truths, and this is a medical diagnosis. Oh, good. It's clear. There's a symptom. What's the symptom? I'm suffering. I'm not... life is, in general, or we start that there's the vicissitudes. There's pleasure and pain and gain and loss and health and sickness. And because it's so out of control and we have a fantasy that it shouldn't be like that, we suffer. We suffer and we freak out and we do all kinds of addictive behaviors and we harm each other, thinking that we can bring stability and happiness, that we can be happy through doing that. And it fails. So if we have a disease, we want to be able to diagnose it. We want to know what it is. We look for the cause. What is it that causes us to suffer? What is it in our lives that's so difficult? And fortunately, there's a promise of a cure. The medicine is known. And there's a treatment plan, which is the Eightfold Path. I forgot two props. Here we are. The arrows. Michael Shohan made these arrows. Thank you, Michael. From the Buddha. If I were to be shot by an arrow, would it be painful and challenging, and would I suffer? How about if I was shot with another arrow? Would it be worse? This is the two arrow simile. The first arrow, I'm going to go through defining or articulating birth, sickness, old age, decay, death. This is going to happen to all of us. Every relationship ends in separation or death. We're playing hardball here, or keeps. It's not a rehearsal. So there's that. But there's the second arrow, which is the response to this. And it's the second arrow that the Buddha said and taught that can be removed. So we'll still have this. The Buddha had headaches. He died of food poisoning. There was lots of war around him. He'd been staying in a place for almost 30 years, and the son killed the father and kicked the Buddha out at 82, and put him on the road to find a new place to be. That probably was challenging. So, suffering, or dukkha. Another term I learned not so long ago, the term dukkha literally means if you have a race, what's it called? An axle rides in a hub. Okay. If you throw a little gravel in there, that's dukkha. And there's dukkha in life, is the first ennobling truth. So let's see if all these crashes of the computer have scrambled this. I hope not. So the symptom is dukkha. Suffering, translated also unsatisfactoriness, stress, is a modern translation, difficult to bear, and Ruth's colorful translation, Dalink, there is always a leak in the canoe. Click. So here. I want to go into this for a moment, my favorite little diagram. I want to be me, I've got to be me. The droplet that comes up out of the water, it's there for a little second and then goes down. That, of course, is just like us. We are here on the planet for such a short time. I was at the Beaverton Market yesterday having a lovely conversation with a fellow in a coffee shop, and I called him young man, and he said, "I'm older than you." And I said, "I don't think so." So he said, I said, "Tell me how old I am." And he looked at me, he said, "Turn sideways." And then he said, 68. I thought, shit. I'm supposed to look younger at my age. Damn. 68. That's old. That's not fair. No. But so this little droplet is the I, me, mine, mine phenomenon, and we're very attached to it, are we not? Right? When it gets threatened. So there's dukkha. There's dukkha because the droplet doesn't always get its way. And the droplet has unenforceable rules, like there should be more pleasure, please, and less pain. And when I have a preference, my preference should be fulfilled. And this starts in earnest at age 2, with what we call the terrible twos. When the ego begins to emerge and a self is born, there really isn't a self in a 1-year-old. There's just emotion and activity. So these are the categories from the Buddha. There are major life experiences which have this component to them. They are difficult. And they can be really difficult, and we can kick and scream and suffer 10 times as much because we're not able to accept them. And what are these? Birth. Birth. It's a challenging thing to get born. Lots of us don't make it. Oh, that's a video too. Not enough time. Sickness. My daughter has been working at OHSU and on a trauma floor nights for the last year. And today, right now, the trauma floor is filled with people who fell off ladders, rode motorcycles. If you ride a motorcycle, reconsider. car accidents, and many of them that came in with the car accidents weren't wearing their safety belts. Brain damage. This is really happening. We have hospitals all over the city where there is severe illness, and when we get the flu or a cold or something like that, my mind tends to go, it's not right. Something's wrong. There's nothing wrong. Human bodies get sick. They all get sick. And in the end, they get pretty darn sick, or they die sooner. Then there's the colorful experience of old age. This is not just somebody else, this is us. Soon, old age, decay, Rodin, Auguste Rodin, and wouldn't you rather skip this? Oh no, don't put the death slides up. Well, why not? Because this is happening all over the world. 125,000 to 150,000 people will die today on the earth. 125,000 people. That means right now the phone is ringing. Your dad died, your child died, your friend died, your mother died. It's happening right now, now. And that's just today. Yesterday there was 125,000. The day before there were 125,000. The amount of grief on the planet is just astronomical. Of course, there's more. It's a girl. It's a boy. When Ruth Dennison did the baby blessing for Luke, my son, at Brighton Bush 34 years ago, she sprinkled some water on his head and some rose petals and said, "Happy Dukkha, darling. You're such a cute little bundle of dukkha." Death. There's a familiar to some of us, death. I had a Catholic childhood, and that failed. My training was so superficial in Catholicism, I didn't understand it, and the priest didn't understand it. But in my late teens, I became more of a Taoist. I became a worshiper in the Church of the Great Blue Dome, which was the sky and mountains. And I learned how to find some space in the outdoors, and high mountains mostly. High mountains and high-speed skiing. But to make a long story short, in my 20s, about halfway, near the end of my 20s, I did a Zen Catholic sesshin, and I went to the Mary Knoll Sisters place in Tacoma, and I was with Father Bernard McVeigh of the Trappist Abbey and Robert Aitken Roshi, a very famous Zen master. And we had readings from the Catholic mystics, which I'd never heard before. And then we went to Mass. And the first day we went into the church, and there on the cross was the Jesus of my childhood. The Jesus with the thorns and the stab wound. It was literally the same production line. And I feel teary even now, again. I fell to my knees sobbing because the bridge happened between Catholicism and Buddhism. That the Buddha, Siddhartha went and sat under a tree, and he didn't get up. The Buddha got up. And it's very awkward in my observation. It's very awkwardly said, but when we take on a human birth, we climb on the cross. We're the one on the cross. It isn't some guy 2,000 years ago. The only way out of here is death. And on the way, there's a lot of dukkha. And then there's the whole story of the mythology with Jesus, that he rose from the dead. Well, that's awakening. Our intention is to experience, as the Buddha put it, the deathless. They're different vocabularies, different ways of pointing at the fact that this human birth, this little droplet, isn't fundamentally who we are. But we have this incredible case of mistaken identity that we're very identified with. So there's birth, sickness, old age, decay, death. And then there's the ubiquitous experiences that happen all day, every day, having experiences you don't want to have. Have you had a few this morning? How about not having the experiences you do want to have? Right? Sitting in meditation, I want that tremendous bliss state I had last time, damn it. Oh, my neck hurts. I don't like this. Oh, I should have eaten something. I've got indigestion. Why did I do? Oh, I didn't get enough sleep last night. It's his fault. Yak, 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 yak. Being with people you don't like and not being with person or persons you want to be with. Had any of that today? Happens all the time. Sometimes there's this person, it's like, I don't want to be with this person. Well, he's here because he's you. So, dukkha. Dukkha is with us. Baby gets born. They need to cry. They cry. And then I must say, I had no experience with children before my son was born. And I was shocked, dismayed, how much pain he experienced. He was colicky. He didn't sleep well. He was in freaked out agony often. And then he'd be in bliss, right? It's the bonding cycle. Agony, mommy, breast, or bottle, cuddling, falling asleep. Basic trust, developing basic trust. So dukkha. Do you need any more convincing that dukkha is real? Are you familiar with it? So let's go back. There's a realization paradigm, and I must do this briefly. With each of the four noble truths, or ennobling truths, there's three levels of insight. The first is, yep, like what we're doing now. That's a worthy model. It sort of hangs together. It makes sense. The second is experiential, which is in our meditation, why we meditate. In our meditation, we come face to face, nose to nose with the reality of dukkha. Not the thought of it, but there's a place that I've visited or been countless times in my years of practice that you're sitting there and you just want to scream. Right? It's so awful and nothing bad is going on. What is happening? Or there's some torturous thing. Maybe you've had a loss and there's just agony. There's just this agony of heartbreak. Literally, your heart is literally aching and you're suffering. Instead of distracting, instead of intoxicating, instead of buying something, to sit and go into the anguish of it, to feel the suffering. To do that is the development of compassion. Compassion is the capacity to sit in the middle of hell and be conscious. So it's experiential as Dancing with Life. Philip Moffat says so beautifully in his book, Dancing with Life, which is about the Four Noble Truths. Great book. The task is to learn to bear dukkha as a wagon bears a load. Right? The primary reason people don't establish and keep an ongoing, deepening meditation practice is because it works. It reveals the dukkha. And I don't want to experience dukkha, well then don't practice. The problem is if we don't experience dukkha, we also can't experience the true sukha, the pleasure. We also can't experience liberation because the way out is through. So experiential, we learn to bear the dissatisfaction. you're in a relationship, a friendship, or an intimate relationship, and it's one of those times when it's just not working, and you're just, well, blaming the other is one thing, blaming oneself is another thing, and there's lots of strategies and great things we can do. One other thing we can do is to realize I'm in the room with this person, and I'm really suffering. There's real unhappiness. There's that feeling. And to just bear it, to not have to make sense of it, to not find meaning in it or lack of meaning in it, to just bear it like a wagon bears a load. And then the third level of understanding at each of the Four Ennobling Truths is realization when it starts to inform our life. When something really doesn't go well and you're feeling really bad about it, to recognize, aha, this is dukkha. We're lied to endlessly by the media and by the advertising world because this is the way we're supposed to be. Gets very tiring. Hi. I just had a chocolate bar. I got a new car. It's so weird. It's not always like that. Sometimes it's kind of the cool chic. So, taking the symptom back. Are you convinced dukkha exists? Any holdouts? I didn't want to hear this when I was 22 when I ran into it. So, let's say I'm suffering like a wagon bears a load, and I get pretty good at it. So I can actually be in it. Let's say I'm having pain in my knee. Happens often in meditation. I'm having pain. Why am I suffering? Why is it not just pain? I don't like it. I have an unenforceable rule that it shouldn't be like this. And the Buddha, bless his heart, brilliant scientist. The Buddha observed and said, well, there are pleasant sensations at the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the feeling body, and at the mind. There are pleasant experiences, and because we're mammals and because we want to survive and pleasure is good, we attach to it. I want it. And there's a kind of leaning toward it, a craving for it. This is called, the cause, I didn't have that here, interestingly, is called tanha, literally thirst. It's the thirst of the self for pleasure. Sense desires. And we have some adventures in sense desire here. Samsara is the wheel of birth and death. Are you convinced this is becoming awkward and unpleasant? May I take the dukkha arrow out? Phew. That was easy. There's these various sense desire. Oh, this is a fun one. Johnny in his best. Huh? What? Want to go back? All right, I'll go back. Get a little more Johnny. I mean, that is, whew. He's quite something. Just a couple more just for fun. How about that? Sense desire, I want it, I want it, I want it. Or, close this. Oh, let me see, jump down here. This is a good one. Oh, no, it's a repeat. There's a few of those around. This one here, I think, is, ooh. It's what turns you on, you just don't know. All right. This is a fun one. How about that? Ooh, wanting. We'll get a split screen. Actually, yes, with you there. Right. Yeah, okay. So, Is there anything intrinsically wrong with these objects of desire? Of course not. And we must have pleasure in our lives. We must, where I started with the poem. But the fact that we can't take it or leave it, especially when we have a big pleasure, when it goes away, when it dies or leaves us, or when we can't get it, we tend to suffer because we have a belief that it shouldn't go away. And of course, everything ends. Everything ends. I mean, whenever I talk about this, I think of my family and my children, but that we will say goodbye to everybody and everything. And I was present at the death of Ruth Dennison back in February, and it was so convincing. Old, really old, decrepit, dementia, and then gone. And then into the crematorium, gone. It's very convincing. There's a second form of tanha, or thirst, which is the desire for an experience to stop. And this is an experience. It touches me just to see it. These are parents whose children or child was killed in the Beslan in Russia at the school catastrophe a few years ago. The Chechen. They're either the Chechen terrorists or the Chechen freedom fighters, depending upon what side of nationalism you want to. It's like all over the world. The good guys are the good guys, and the bad guys are always the terrorists. The tsunami. Even looking at that, I want it to stop. Or, dare I take I don't know what this is, we'll just shoot in the dark. Oh, actually, we'll watch this, it's fun. This is something you want to stop. It goes on like that. Pain, discomfort, we want it to stop. Some years ago, I ruptured my quadriceps tendons in the mountains and got helicoptered out. And the doctor said after I sew it together is when the pain's going to be here, and he was right. And I had the wrong medication. I was allergic to it. I didn't realize it. And I woke up in the middle of the night for several nights, having taken everything I could, in just absolute agony. And the only practice I found that did anything was to lie there in that with the reflection, this is human agony. There wasn't too much codeine to move into a space of witnessing. It was just, and that was bearing dukkha like a wagon bears a load. And that opportunity, and I also had kidney stones once, that opportunity of great pain and suffering is right there, right? In a moment. There's the neutral, or every sense to our contact is pleasant, unpleasant, or they're kind of neutral, they're undecided, and we just don't pay much attention. And that way we get out of the habit of really watching, observing what's happening. So there's a problem, there's a disease, there's a suffering, there's a syndrome called dukkha. There's a cause which is I can't accept it. I won't accept it. It shouldn't be like this. Somebody did this to me, or I did this to myself, or I hate myself. Or fortunately, it'll be pretty grim. That's it for today, folks. But there is a cure. And the cure is remembering who we really are. Remembering what we really are. When there's pain in the knee, meditative pain somewhere in the body, and you sit with the pain, and it's awful, oh, I hate it, oh, it's suffering, and you look, well, where's the craving? I want it to stop. Oh, so we watch that for a little while, and then the miracle happens, and the suffering goes out of it, and the pain persists. And then the suffering's back. But we get a glimpse of the nirvana paradigm there. And nirvana is the quenching. When I want it differently. When that goes out, the suffering's gone. There's still life. There's still the experience that we're having. But the I, me, mine that is so positioned has dissolved. And in fact, if I could pop up the droplet, our true position is not this. This is our temporary home. This is our biological manifestation for a very brief time. And what the mystics of every tradition speak of is the experience that this isn't fundamentally who we are. And a glimpse of that for a tenth of a second changes everything. And the whole purpose of spiritual practice is getting us in the vicinity of that kind of realization. So I wanted to read. The Buddha called it the deathless, or the unformed, the uncreated. But this is my most favorite document of any on the planet. I've carried this with me in one form or another for 35 years. The great way is not difficult for those who are not identified with their preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are set infinitely apart. If you wish to see the truth, then hold no opinions for or against anything. To set up what you like against what you dislike is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of things is not understood, the mind's essential peace is disturbed to no avail. The way is perfect like vast space where nothing is lacking and nothing is in excess. Indeed, it is due to our choosing to accept or reject that we do not see the true nature of things. Live neither in the entanglements of outer things nor in inner feelings of emptiness. Be serene in the oneness of things, and such erroneous views will disappear by themselves. When you try to stop activity to achieve passivity, your very effort fills you with activity. As long as you remain in one extreme or the other, you will never know oneness. And it goes on. Beautiful, beautiful poem. So, if we're going to be motivated, we have to have enough dukkha. And almost nobody really undertakes meditative practice in earnest without there being some kind of massive collapse. Right? Some great loss or some sickness or something. We dabble, and there certainly is nothing wrong with mindfulness practice for stress management. And there's a huge movement of that in the country, around the world, MBSR. And it affects people very deeply beyond what they talk about, of course. And there's no reason at all not to practice mindfulness to have psychological and emotional release and to get so we live a much happier life. And then the ultimate purpose, or the real place that spiritual life takes us, is toward real freedom. Freedom and also real love. Right? When I realize how much pain there is in here, how much suffering there is in here, and can face it, then one sees it in others. I brought up the ruptured quads and the helicopter trip. There's an article about that on robertbeatty.com, incidentally, with pictures of the helicopter. Yay for the Army Black Hawk helicopters, the proper use. I've had this pain on the right side of my right back, my low back, my middle, and my neck, and it's been here for a long time, and I was getting some acupuncture and massage a couple of days ago, and I had forgotten to tell her about my ruptured quadriceps. And I started to tell her about it, and then I realized there's so much sadness from that time that was in the body. And she needled me up and left the room, and I just wept for half an hour. That was an anguishing time that I didn't have the wherewithal to spacious out over it. But it was here in me, and there's lots of things that are still here in me, as there are in all of us. And as we become conscious of that, then we can look around and say it's in everybody. Even in the people we cherish as our enemies, the people we blame and so on. As we open to the dukkha in ourselves, and when we get some relief, right? When the nirvana function, the quenching function occurs, then we start being motivated very differently. Then we get interested in the Eightfold Path. And, well, how can I clean up my speech? And how can I clean up my action? So, kids, are the kids there already? Not quite. I want to propose this as a very useful equation. Suffering, S, varies directly with non-acceptance. And when you're suffering, when that experience of I feel bad, I'm suffering, when you're suffering, you can pause and ask yourself the question, what is it that I can't accept? Right? What is it that I can't accept? And then pay attention to the very dynamic of non-acceptance, and that's the door to freedom. And courage. Courage and good company. We need each other to do this because it's hard. And noble. That's why they're called the Noble Truths. Please let us bring in the young people, and I invite you all to stand and form a circle. Thank you for your kind attention. Oh, yeah. Excuse me, I'm going to go through. Now, this is a formal introduction or invitation. Any of you that are cast into the outer darkness of the large circle, you may come and join us in the inner circle and help blow out the candle. Don't feel constrained. Hi. Hi. Can I sit here? Oh. Oh, you guys are going to sing? All right. Actually, coming in on the goal. Oops. Hi, sweetie. Can I put my leg in here? My leg hurts if I don't make it straight. There we go. Thank you. Well, here we are. Did you have fun today? Yeah? All right. So please find a hand or two you can hold, if that's okay. Can I hold your hand? 1, 2. Hi, there. That's fun, isn't it? So let's feel this hand on our left and a hand on our right. Give it a little squeeze. It's like there's really somebody there. I can feel you squeezing. we can communicate our presence with each other. And so, just as our minds can think all kinds of uncontrolled thoughts, they can also think something nice like, oh, I hope you have a wonderful day today. I hope you're really healthy and happy and that your life goes well. And so, intuiting what would be your deepest wish or prayer for the persons on your left and right. Since each of us is a manifestation of the entire universe, we have extraordinary capacity to bless and to love. And let's include everyone that's in the circle. Everyone that's ever come in this room in 70, 85 years. To our friends and families and everybody on this little dust speck of a planet. In fact, all of our brothers and sisters of the air, the earth, and the waters. And so, we come to the ancient ritual of chanting. And we have some chanters. Yes. Whenever you're ready.
Beings be happy.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be
happy.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. That was beautiful. And now, not you have to wait. We're practicing patience. You know what patience is? I want it now, and I'm not getting it now.
Yeah.
So we have to wait. And now, in a few moments, I'm going to count, and then we do the usual blowing out the candle. And everyone in the room is invited to join in this tornado of wind. Get your wish. What's your wish, though? Be clear on that first. Clarify your intention. 1, 2, 3, blow. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and please join us for coffee and tea and goodies and friendship back in the living room.